Kody is a failure in not making those marriages work.
I feel like we're all failures, not just Kody. I think that's funny because it takes two to make a relationship and it takes two to break a relationship. See, that's just, I feel like another button to push. And I'm just like, okay, why? That doesn't need to be said. And, you know, things that he's saying, like, that doesn't need to be said. You know, I'm like, just, guys, can you just stop? Like, this is so destructive.
Hey besties, it's Jenny from Sister Wives Exposed. While Kody and Robyn take the tell-all for Sister Wives stretching their booties regarding what happened on the season and with all these relationships, we know that what really happened is not what they said, right? And Kody does this cameo, and I don't even know if you're aware, but he's paid to talk to people and give them advice. And what Kody tends to tell people in the form of advice is just to talk about his life. And most of the time, he's only there to give them advice on birthdays or, congratulations or honeymoons or whatever, and he makes every single cameo about him. And then he was just asked to wish this departing couple on their honeymoon and maybe give us some insight into, their marriage. And Kody. Oh my goodness. So all those years on the show, they never even talked about sex, okay? They never talked about the sex between anyone because apparently it was uncomfortable for all, and they did not want to know what everyone else did in the bedroom. And I've always been like, if people are okay with being in a plural relationship, if you're totally okay with being in that kind of relationship, theoretically speaking, you shouldn't be jealous because you're consenting and you agree, right? But if you're not okay with it, it's usually a red flag that your body is telling you that something's not right, right? And I would say that jealousy is a pretty standard human feeling. And I believe that while there's a large number of individuals who feel that, this kind of polygamy where it's circumstantially about this kind of belief system and in these cults is somehow consensual, I don't believe it is. You'll never persuade me that it is. It's all about control and coercion and fear, and it's a whole system in effect to basically make women cattle and property. And I think that was illustrated by Kody basically explaining how he didn't respect some of his wives just recently on the tell-all. But a couple years ago or so, I think I told you about how there was a story that was told to me by one of Kody's friends about how they were having lunch with Kody. And throughout lunch, Kody was rambling and rambling and rambling about how great getting dirty was with Robyn and that he could not get enough of it, and it was all he wanted. He was like craving it the way people with substance use disorders crave their substance. He was a fiend. And just recently in one of his videos that he uploaded for some random individual on the internet who watches Sister Wives, Kody spent a lot of time detailing his honeymoon with Robyn, and it was just so cringy and so disgusting. Check it out. Robyn and I spent absolutely no money on our honeymoon. Unfortunately, I had a credit which covered our lodging and a $500 credit card. That was all we had. And she has the audacity to complain to me that I was starving her because I had brought the entire variety of nuts and seeds and fruit, dried fruit. That's my way of traveling. And that's what we were eating. And we were on our honeymoon, and we were chaste non-sexual before the honeymoon. And so it was the new land of discovery. And she was mad that I was starving her. So I'm sure your experience is so much different than that. I'd love to give you more background on the whole thing. This is about you guys. What was fortunate about it is we just got lost in each other. And it was a weird thing that apart from needing food and a ticket into an amusement park at Disneyland, we just got lost in each other. And that was just so precious experience. And when you're on your honeymoon, you've got to make it all about each other. A place of discovery, a place of learning and understanding and sharing, of giving and receiving and sharing and taking. I mean, it just can be so beautifully lovely. So do give yourself some time. If you're visiting another country, chances are you're going to be sightseeing an awful lot, but do spend some time with each other to actually connect. My courtship, it is funny to me because at first he says that they did not have money and that they partially taped part of it, but afterwards they had just a credit card for $500 and they had a lodging credit, that is TLC paid for them to stay in a hotel, and they had per decimeter card that they received in order to eat daily by TLC, and so he did not pay anything for his honeymoon. It was taped, they had dinner, they had parks larger than Disney World. But then he proceeded to tell us that they had to escape from there, and they lost each other in a sense and east themselves. And that's just a fragment of it, of him going on about the giving and the receiving and the getting to know each other's wonderful experiences. And it was their first toe dipping. I don't think so, by the way. You'll never get me to believe that their honeymoon was the first time they ever did it. And can you imagine getting a cameo by Kody Brown and he is making innuendo about the great sex Robyn and he shared on their last San Diego honeymoon in California where they were gone for 11 days. And now that we know why they spent 11 days. Because apparently for some of the days they were actually shooting and the other 9 just did nothing in their hotel room and front-hugged Mormon fundamentalist style on a bed. I wonder if they actually wore their garments. They do that here and there, but getting and giving and finding, and yes, Kody and Robyn, everything they apparently did on their honeymoon apart from those 2 instances when they were shooting was getting it on. You know, I always used to say that Kody was such a perv, and I always used to know that he was, because I think about this a lot now that I'm reporting on this case with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. If I don't cover these types of stories, I would never even discuss these kinds of things, because why would you even discuss these type of things? I don't want Kody to be gay. It's disgusting. Why would I even consider him in a bedroom with Robyn? I mean, do you think that when they became wealthy, they just started rolling around in $100 bills on the bed and getting up and getting around and exploring and telling and getting? Kody was requested to supply a cameo on a honeymoon. And Kody's idea of a honeymoon is sex. That is what he imagines his honeymoon. I'm just going to get as much sex as I can. I am going to be lying in a bedroom all day long. But what's worst is it's like he wants these people to know he and Robyn had lots of sex. Why do you need to tell that to some rando having their honeymoon? Do you think they even want to go into their honeymoon now thinking about Kody and Robyn having sex? And if you're Robyn, do you enjoy your husband telling the world that all you did on your honeymoon was sex? It's almost like when he was talking with Meri about the divorce and he was commenting on how they had likely gone home and had sex after she signed for the divorce. And on the tell-all, Meri just spoke and said that they just never did talk about that in public because it was an understanding that they simply would not. They did not want it to be that way because evidently there's already that one idea about polygamous men's being creepy. And then so he goes and makes that comment. It's sort of the first time really that he speaks about it in a way like that on the show. And now that he opened that door, so apparently all Kody wants to talk about. I mean, he's just so gross. Somebody paid $150 for him to talk about how much sex he had with Robyn on their honeymoon. I'm short of words sometimes. Let me break it down. Moms get a chemical deposited into them. I'm going to call it God's magic. And this chemistry gets you to love your children in a way that's incompatible when your kids are born, and gets you to love them absolutely without condition for it all. And I'm envious because it makes you a man. It's the fathers who get to do the nasty things most of the time. Half the time I'm just overindulgent anyway. But the moms have the empathy. They feel sorry for the kids. They sympathize. They care. They're loving. They're understanding. And they listen instead of trying to find a solution like fathers. And this present that you... So after Kody was done talking about starving his wife Robyn, his mistress Robyn, hugging Mormon style in front of all of them on the bed, he then was doing Mother's Day cameos, and in 2 of them he made this comment which was interesting and reminded me of something he said in the tell-all, where he said that each and every person offers you something different, and they complete a need in you, or they offer you something, or they add to you, and you have different relationships with everyone, which is true. But at the same time, I believe Kody thinks about relationships very transactionally, like what they offer him, not necessarily like the back and forth that is between the 2 of them. And he would indicate that he did not need one wife to fulfill a need in him. He would always explain that they all were a whole person and the relationships were whole, all of them. And they did not fulfill a need in one and then another one and another one. It wasn't as if they were bifurcated as like Robyn is the sex wife, and this one is the cooking wife, and this one is the working wife or whatever. This is the head wife. He used to always mention that they were all whole. So now we know that Robyn was a sex life. But then also he has a very sexist notion about women, right? He said Christine cooked for him and he was unable to be in a good mood since she was always grieving because she was not happy. And then in these he's talking about mothers, and he's got this theory, this idea that the reason women love their kids so unconditionally is that when they have the baby or they give birth, which this would only hold true for a woman that gives birth, by the way. There are plenty of mothers that adopt children that can love their kids unconditionally. And there are plenty of women who have kids who don't love their kids unconditionally. But he says that when you give birth to your baby, your body releases oxytocin and it makes you bond with your baby. And I know that there is some truth in that, but he is making an analogy from giving birth and releasing oxytocin to a mother being able to love a child and be empathetic and be understanding and be patient and love unconditionally to giving birth and releasing oxytocin. And he informs us he's jealous of mothers because they are able to love unconditionally. And then he justifies his bad parenting because he explains that he needs to be the man who's the bad cop. You know that he's keeping them in their place. He's tough on them. He's constantly having to play defense. You know he's the one that has to get him in line, which is again a very sexist way of thinking about parenting. That it is this outdated stereotype that men are not attached to their children and that their children are attached unconditionally with their children with their mothers, which it's true, like women do have relationships with their children that are likely very different than men. But to say that men can't love their children unconditionally, I think that is so not fair to men. And if that's his understanding of his children, well, no wonder half of them care about nothing to do with them with him. If his idea of parenting is that he just shows up to repair them or to punish them, You get where I'm going with this. Or to scold them. What a parent is that? You're missing the good stuff, right? And he acts like the wives that aren't being the ones to make them accountable. And I'll let you in on a little secret. My husband is the softie of me and him when it comes to my son, and I'm a giant softie with my son. But if we're trying to get my child to do something, our child to do something, my son will know how to push daddy's buttons to like not have daddy make him do it. You know what I mean? Like if it's like you gotta do your homework, he can whittle his way with daddy and he can get out of it. But with me, like he won't. He hold like we hold strong. He knows to listen to mommy. He's going to get his homework done. And I'm not a mean mommy by any means. We don't use spankings. He doesn't get timeouts. He doesn't get grounded. You know what I mean? Just like men can be softies and love unconditionally and give and literally love their child more than they love themselves. That's true. But how Kody views women and kids is just so weird to me. If he is so out of touch and he thinks that only women can love unconditionally, what does that indicate about men? Does that mean that his sons then are going to go on to be fathers who can't love unconditionally? Does this mean that he doesn't unconditionally love Aurora and Brianna and Dayton and Solomon and Ariella? Does it mean that if they do something that makes him angry, he will then unlove them? Is that how it is that what it means? Because a child's place in the world, their sole way of maintaining healthy relationships in life is by being parented by people who teach them behavior that's safe and who don't leave them scarred and hurt. And many of us had parents who left us scarred and hurt. And Kody appears to do the same with his current children he is living with, as he didn't say that he can love his current kids, like the young ones, unconditionally. What an empty container of utter gross nothingness. It must be utterly exhausting to hang out with this guy. And Robyn couldn't possibly enjoy the money that much, so that she's okay with her husband boasting of starving her during her honeymoon, because they have been having so much sex, and then rambling on about how women can love without conditions but not him. So surprise to Robyn after you've worn out your welcome and you don't give him what he wants and you don't meet his needs and you skip out on all the sex, you'll be as dull to him as the rest of the women. And when your children start to develop opinions that he can no longer control, they'll be cast off like the rest. And there is a reason that their oldest son Dayton doesn't appear on the show. And that's because Kody and he don't get along. But they won't tell you that. They won't tell you that Kody isn't kind to a child and an adult with autism. They won't say that. He's just a creep. And these cameos are the real Kody, not the Kody you watch on TV. So how do you feel about these disgusting things Kody said about his wife Robyn, about children, about sex? Is he as revolting as I feel he is? Let me know in the comments section below. Don't forget to thumbs up this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber and click the bell so you don't miss any of my videos. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.